Mike Kernan, Missouri Valley here for another Courtside Chat. We have two guests with us today. Harry Schroeder, of course, our host. Michael Admire, the voice of the Drake Bulldogs. Anthony Kristensen, the beat writer for the Evansville Purple Aces. And we'll start off by having each guest introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how they get started in their respective careers. And Michael, we'll start off with you. And how did you get started at Drake? And then we'll go to Anthony.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun journey, if you will, to get to be the play-by-play guy for Drake. It actually started, I was in television for 8.5 years. I worked in Southeast Kansas, Southwest Missouri as a sports reporter and anchor. And then after about 18 months, I got a job at WHO TV in Des Moines. I was working for the MVC affiliate and loved that. I was doing that for 5.5 years, worked for a great team. And after a little bit of a time, just kind of decided I just needed a little bit of a change. And when Drake started looking for their next play-by-play broadcaster, I kind of threw my hat in the ring, if you will. One of the guys I worked with at WHO TV is a Drake alum. So I just mentioned his name's Andy Fales. I mentioned to Andy, I was like, hey, do you think they would ever, consider me? I have zero play-by-play broadcasting experience. But this is something that I think would be really fun and I really want to try my hand at. And the conversations kind of went from there. It expanded from me doing like part television, part play-by-play to a full-time job at Drake where I can tell stories in our department for all of our 18 sports. But then also I get to, do the play-by-play thing during men's basketball and a little bit for the, ESPN Plus and ESPN3 broadcast in the fall with football, a little bit of soccer, and then some softball as well. So yeah, it was kind of a crazy thing, but I think the big thing that Drake was looking for at that time was somebody that could help tell the story of Drake athletics. And I kind of have a background in storytelling. That's my strong suit. So that's kind of how it all happened in a very short, condensed way.
You do a great job, Michael, with all your myriad of responsibilities at Drake. And Anthony Kristensen covers the Purple Aces, but not the Purple Aces. He's writer for the Evansville Courier Press. And Anthony, how did you get started in the business? You're brand new. Talk a little bit about your brief career so far. And of course, you do a great job as well.
Well, thank you. No, so yeah, like you said, I'm brand new. I just graduated from University of Missouri in May. But yeah, I remember, I applied for so many different jobs and internships, in my last 2 semesters at Mizzou, that some of them I know that I don't remember applying for them just because of the sheer volume of, things and places I applied for. But I remember applying for this job, very vividly. I was a finalist for a big internship at a bigger newspaper, but they ended up, going with somebody else who was already local to the area. And so I remember just kind of doom scrolling LinkedIn, looking for different options. And I saw this, and it was, covering, Evansville and mainly the men's basketball team there. And, I was covering the Mizzou team the Mizzou men's team as a student. And, really had kind of fallen in love with college basketball reporting, even though that Mizzou team was, pretty lousy. And, looking at it, I knew, I'm the St. Louis area kid. So, the Missouri Valley is, it's a big deal. And, covering Division I college basketball right out of school sounds like a pretty sweet gig. So I just kind of applied and didn't hear anything for a couple of months. I applied in like December, figuring that, just throw my name out there and see if, people would see my name, become familiar with me, and maybe it'll help me down the line. But I think it was March, I get an email from Chad, my sports editor, saying, he wants to talk a little bit more about it. And the rest is history.
Well, Anthony, you're on the ground floor of a promising program with a new coaching staff and a great fan base in Evansville. And let's turn it over to Harry Schroeder. And Harry, we'll let you guide the conversation today and interview both of our guests, and then we'll wrap it up in about 25 minutes or so. Harry?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody. Michael, I wanted to ask you, you and I talked several weeks ago, but I wanted to ask you in this forum, you talked about getting the job there. What was it like following after what was really a difficult situation in Drake with the former broadcaster passing away in a flood, Larry Cutler? Just what was that like for to kind of step into those shoes in a difficult time?
Yeah, well, the thing that maybe sparked my interest most in working at Drake was just the way and the manner in which that everybody at Drake handled the sudden passing of Larry Cutler. I, as a reporter that night, we have these major floods. I'm the only sports reporter on deck, and it was late at night, so there were no news reporters in the building. And so I went to our assignment desk. I was like, hey, we need somebody out in the field. So I'm going to go. I'm taking a camera, and I'll just set it up somewhere where I know there may be some high waters, and I'll just start reporting. And so I ended up becoming the point person on that entire flood. And then after Larry died, I covered the funeral and all that stuff. And it was just a really tough situation, but I just really respected how Drake handled it all. And so, yeah, it wasn't one of those things where I was like, oh, I want to jump in now, but I just wanted to talk to him and say, hey, I really appreciate what you guys did. I want to be a part of this, basically. And yeah, it was really tough at first. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Once you kind of get into the job, it settled in, and the advice his wife gave me was just love the players like Larry did. Wow. And I was like, all right, I will do that, and kind of always had that in the back of my mind since.
Yeah, he was a great guy and just an amazing guy. Wrote a book called like the biggest Rolodex in sports or something like that. I read that book years ago. It was fun. Hey, Anthony, you guys went to the, super famous school, Missouri, the School of Journalism there. At what point in your life do you said, man, I want to be a writer. I want to be a sports writer. What were those influences for you?
Well, so I grew up playing soccer. I actually played college soccer for 2 years at a junior college before I transferred to Mizzou. And I first kind of fell in love with journalism when I was a freshman in high school. My high school had a pretty good journalism program, and I decided I wanted to be a part of something that was good. Yeah, from there, kind of tested the waters on a bunch of different things. I covered the 2016 presidential election for the student newspaper at my high school. I did a lot of some protest coverage and stuff like that, but I mean, nothing ever felt quite like sports, and kind of decided that I wanted to do sports whenever I realized I wasn't good enough at soccer to make a living off it. So yeah, just kind of progressed from there. I was originally committed to keep playing soccer after my JUCO days, but then I decided, I should probably go to the cheap in-state school that's right down the road for the exact career I want to go into. So yeah, that's kind of long story short about how I got into journalism and then into sports journalism. And let me tell you, when I first got to Mizzou, I was not good at all. I don't think anybody in this field ever actually thinks they're good. But man, when I think about my writing, when I first got to Mizzou, I kind of wince a little bit just thinking about how bad it was. But it's a testament to the people who I got to connect with over the years. My high school journalism advisor, Aaron Manful. I'm going to shout these guys out by name just because I appreciate them, I guess.
I like it. Go for it.
And then my editor at the student newspaper, who's now still at the school, funnily enough, Jack Sobel, helped me a lot. And then my last editor, not last, but Brett Dawson, who's now covering Louisville for the Courier Journal over there, and Pete Bland, those guys all set me straight and made sure that I wasn't as bad as I was.
Michael, Anthony, one of the day, a couple of weeks ago, I think I tweeted out something about like you were the hardest working guy in Evansville or somewhere. I don't know what classification I put it in. You do work really hard and talk about what it's like to work the beat. I mean, like most people, they've got no idea what you're trying to do day by day. They just see your story after a game or in between games, but there's a lot of work, prep, research. Talk a little bit about that job.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, like you said, a lot goes into it. It's not just, going to games and talking to players and coaches afterward. I mean, a lot of it goes into, relationship building with, players, coaches, and then, support staff as well, like the SIDs, the other people inside the department, the athletic directors, and, so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's, going to events you don't necessarily have to be at has kind of been a big help for me. Like, going to all of the, summer road trip things that, Evansville was putting on for David Ragland and the new staff over the summer, and just kind of building that relationship with, all of those guys, really helped me in the long run. And that's the big thing about journalism is, it's a relationship field. If you don't build relationships, you're not going to be very good at it. And yeah, so I mean, that's just been, one of the big things. Even if you're, not going to write something off an event, you should still probably go just to make sure that you're building these relationships. And yeah, so that's been kind of the big paramount thing. But then also, trying to go to practice here and there just to, work on features, tell these guys stories, away from the basketball court or the field or, the pool or wherever you're, whatever you're covering at the time. And I mean, that's kind of the reason, like the biggest reason, like, I'm in journalism is telling stories, and kind of like what Michael said, storytelling is, it's the fun part of it. I mean, going to games and stuff is, it's obviously it's cool. I get paid to watch and write about basketball. So, I mean, I can't complain about that, but, the storytelling and, getting the readers to know, the players and coaches and, everybody else is kind of that's the best part of it for me.
Michael, you talked about being a storyteller, and you talked about Larry's wife saying, love the players. Talk about that relationship aspect that you have with the program, with the university, with Coach DeVries, those players. That what Anthony just said is so critical, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And coming from television and, the journalism side of things where, there is that relationship, and it's so important. There's no doubt about it. That was one thing I really wanted to, the thing that like really attracted me to Drake too was being a part of a team again. Played high school sports, and I loved it. And when you're in journalism, you gotta, be unbiased. There are those relationships, but there's, an unbiased relationship there. And then so coming to Drake, it's like, all right, I get to wear a Drake sweatshirt, and I get to be a part of the team, if you will. I'm on the road and traveling and all that stuff, and that's just what makes it fun. You just naturally, as you're on the road, and we're going to go spend 5 days. We go to Valpo, then we're staying on the road through the Murray game. So when you're in the hotel and on buses and planes and going to dinners and all that stuff, you just kind of naturally start building some relationships. And this team's great. It also helps when some of the guys have been around for 5, 6 plus years, so you really get to know the players in that sense. But no, yeah, it's a great group, and Coach DeVries is fantastic to work with. It really is. Now that I'm inside basketball a little bit, inside the college athletic department, I can see how vitally important it is for everybody around the department to have coaches that that care and have good cultures, because it's so vital.
Why did you end up in television in the first place, in journalism in the first place? What were your influences? What stirred you in that direction?
Oh man, I always tell the stories, like from 6 years old, my dad and I would be sitting on the couch. We'd pause, a Royals broadcast or a Chiefs broadcast, and we would have our own. And we'd go back and forth trading the play-by-play and color commentary duties, and that, that's kind of where it sparked. And then I got into a good high school program similar to Anthony. My high school teacher was just fantastic. We had, weekly news magazines where we tell stories and anchor. And so I really got to experience what broadcasting was like then. Went to Pittsburgh State in Southeast Kansas, did the 4 years there. And just kind of just grew from there. As soon as I picked up a camera and started learning about how to, tell stories through video and audio and script writing and all that stuff, I fell in love with it. And so I really appreciate that I still get to do that at Drake, along with some of the play-by-play duties as well.
It's outstanding. We should talk about your teams a little bit. And Michael, just another boring game the other night between Drake and Northern Iowa. 3 straight games where they've had overtimes. This one went twice. Darren just doesn't believe in fouling up 3 late in the game, apparently. But talk a little bit about your team and about that Drake Northern Iowa, not just that there are a lot of close games, but the rivalry.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I've like tried to play into this rivalry a little bit, because early on it wasn't really a rivalry. Northern Iowa had kind of dominated it all. Mm-hmm. They won a couple of games early on. In season 1, they won one in the regular season, and then in the tournament knocked us out after we were the 1 seed that year. So yeah, I mean there's Northern Iowa kind of dominated the rivalry. So I enjoy poking fun at Cedar Falls and Northern Iowa, but I also covered Ben Jacobson. I also covered Bowen Bourne as a reporter. So it's so hard to not like those guys, because man, they do such a great job. Ben's awesome, and Bowen was fantastic once again. And man, I knew he was good. Covered him in high school and all this stuff, and saw him a little bit over the last couple of years, but I didn't realize just how little space he needed. And he's a little guy, but he doesn't need a ton of space to get his shot off, and most of the time it goes in. So this rivalry continues to grow. It's a lot of fun, and I'll continue to play into it. Although I do have a ton of respect, and so does everybody here for Northern Iowa. And I think it's mutual. I think they have some respect for what we got going on here as well. But another good basketball game. Those games are fun to call. I think it's just so good for the Valley. And it's a rivalry game, but it's for first places online. By the time we got out of halftime, we knew that Belmont and Southern Illinois had lost, so there was like just a little bit extra on the line. And Northern Iowa didn't want to let this one slip, didn't want to give up. We didn't want to let that one go away either, and it was great. And the Knapp Center crowd was, I mean, with the renovation and everything that's happening here, that place is getting pretty gnarly to play in.
It's pretty fun to watch that program continue to grow and excel. Anthony, brand new coach, and obviously the Purple Aces have struggled in terms of wins and losses. And David Ragland, who's one of the most positive guys around, is looking for anything to be positive about. But talk about the team. Talk about what you do see in terms of development around the Purple Aces program.
Yeah, I think I try to tell people this all the time. It's, this season is just kind of, I mean, you weren't expecting much going into this season, especially, watching, obviously I wasn't on beat last season, but I still went back and I watched a lot of, what happened last season, and, so, I mean, and with the coaching change happening as late as it did, fun fact, David Ragland's first day was also my first day. So that's kind of a fun little tidbit, but no, with the coaching change happening as late as it did, I mean, he didn't really have time to get his own players in and do what a first year coach would typically be able to do, just because of the timing with everything. So I mean, really, it's he's playing with guys in a system who weren't recruited to play that system. And while the results obviously aren't there, I have seen some improvements over what I rewatched from last season, and especially over the last few games. I mean, they shoot better from 3 than they have for a large part of the season. Their defense is slowly getting back to where it was at the start of the season when they were, competitive against St. Louis and SMU. And, so there's, little steps, but those obviously haven't gotten to a win just yet in Valley play. Which, I mean, these guys, you can tell they still care, which I think is probably the biggest thing that you want from, a season like this. Ragland is, talking about how, they're still, preaching it every day, the care factor is there. And, when on the most recent coaches Zoom meeting, I asked Josh Schertz about it, and, he said that it's, that's impressive. It's hard to do, keeping guys, motivated when, things just simply aren't going their way. And, they're starting to put together little increments of games. Against Drake, they went on a good run and had the lead for a little bit. Obviously, it didn't end the way they wanted to. Same thing happened against Indiana State the other day. Went on a 12-2 run to start the game, 13-2 run to finish the first half. So, I mean, there are signs of life. And I think another thing is, their rotation is just so thin. Obviously, Sekou Calais has missed however many games in a row since the Missouri State game, with the shoulder injury. 4 guys are redshirting. So, I mean, they're really running, I think, a 7-man rotation right now, maybe 8, which, in a league where a lot of teams go 10 deep, that's going to be difficult.
Tell us a little bit about Rags himself. I just so like him and enjoy him, and he's easy to like. But talk to us a little bit about David Ragland.
Yeah, and I don't think I could have hit the coaching jackpot better than I have in year 1, with both him and Stan Gerard at Southern Indiana. I mean, just a really easy person to work with. Doesn't yell at me when I have to write negative things. So, I mean, he's been awesome. And like you said, probably the most positive guy, there is. But, and in a recent story, a mailbag that I wrote, I think, I wrote that the biggest compliment I can give to him and to Stan Gerard is that, as a former athlete myself, those are guys, I would want to play for. The guys who are going to coach you hard, but also, make sure that you're still, making improvements. My dog is trying to bother me. But, I've seen some people like talk about, go chase that. Maybe he's, too positive, or maybe he's not hard enough on the guys. I can tell you right now, that's not it. Because I've been to practices. I know, they practice hard, and, that those guys, they don't get, free passes or anything like that. So, I mean, he's everything you would want in a coach as an athlete, and probably as a fan as well. And yeah, no, like I said, for a first year reporter, I kind of hit the jackpot covering those guys. And as a student covering Conzo Martin and Dennis Gates, I don't think I could have asked for a better start.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Michael, we know Darren better than we know David Ragland, just because he's been around the league longer. But at the MVC Media Day here in St. Louis, I ended up sitting at a table with the Drake contingent. I ended up having lunch with Darren and the players. And so I just saw a different side of him, and you get to see that different side than the fans do. Talk a little bit about Darren and just the way that program is run under him.
Yeah, I mean, it runs exactly the way that he is. I mean, he is an Iowa guy. He's kind of has a blue collar approach to the way he is and the way that he coaches. And but beyond that, I mean, he's just a good dude. I really don't know how to like fully explain him. He's a hardworking guy. He expects a lot out of his players. No doubt about that. But yeah, he's pretty funny. He can be laid back. The thing that when you think about some of the moments that have happened over the last 5 years, just with injuries and trying to overcome some of that adversity, bouncing the expectations, and coach kind of always finds ways to get the best out of his team. And it's because he just isn't really fazed by much. He's just very steady, very easygoing in that sense. Of course, when you're on the sideline, he's a competitor and he's intense and all that stuff. But when he's struck with that adversity or whatever it may be, he's calm, cool, collected, and extremely steady. And when early on in the season, when teams a couple games below 500 in conference play, the message isn't freak out. It's all right. It's not throw everything out. It's try to find a way to continue to get better. And right now the team's in a tie for first place. And it's just because of that approach that he takes day in and day out.
So Des Moines is the hometown team. You might have created that little phrase. I can't remember, but tell us a little bit about Des Moines, like the people rallying. Obviously the crowds are getting bigger and bigger. So the town is rallying around the program like they have for several years, but also there in Des Moines, where are the places people go to watch games or to eat after the game or whatever it might be? Where, if I'm coming to Des Moines, which I am during the NCAA tournament, where should I go?
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah, I did not come up with Des Moines' hometown team, although I do love it, and I have taken it and ran with it. That was all Brian Harden, so I got to credit him on that. But it's been awesome to watch. I mean, Drake has about a generation of fans that they just completely left behind. The 80s and 90s into the 2000s, that generation is gone. So a lot of people around my age and into their 40s, we don't have those fans. But the last 5 years have started to really create an environment at the Knapp Center, create a connection in the community, and it helps having an Iowa guy as your head coach. It helps having players that have been around for 5 years, so you get to know the players a lot. And then also you got Garrett Sturtz from Newton. He just brings 300 people to every game. The town just shuts down each game day and they drive the 30 minutes in. So that doesn't hurt. But yeah, we've done several things in the community. We have a Drake Hoops Fest, which is it's kind of like our Midnight Madness. We shut down Court Avenue in the middle of downtown Des Moines. We put a court out there, men's and women's basketball teams, play some competitions. That's continued to grow. We have 515 Day. So it's a volunteering day on May 15th. 515 is the Des Moines area code. So we're diving in. We're doing whatever we can. The Des Moines hometown team uniforms. We got Des Moines uniforms that we unveiled a few years back. So yeah, we've done a lot to try to connect to the city. And it's a city that another reason I went to Drake is I wanted to stay in Des Moines. I wanted to be here, and I love it. And so moving on to the places to go around town, which is my specialty. There's so many. There's so many. I think now it's a newer restaurant, or newer spot. Big Grove Brewery, right in the middle of downtown. It is amazing beer, first off, but then their food is fantastic as well. Cintro, it looks like Centro. It's an Italian fine dining in the middle of downtown. Fantastic. If you're looking for, I love Asian food. All right, so Lucky Lotus, maybe the best Asian food you'll find in town. And then Sakari is a sushi place on Ingersoll, which is just on the outskirts of downtown. Pizza Doko right here by the Knapp Center is fantastic. So is Gusto. I don't know. I can keep going all day. I mean, I'm
taking notes. I'm going to be there in a month. So
I'm a foodie. So I love finding new and creative places in town. So that's fun. And I've heard Ducktail Lounge. I don't get to watch any of the games from bars, so that's kind of lame. But I've heard Ducktail Lounge has been kind of the spot that Bulldog fans have been have been gathering.
Spectacular. Anthony, I did want to ask you before, because I'm going to get some eateries from you in Evansville as well. But I wanted to ask you about the fan response, because I know early on when David signed on there, people were excited. And then he landed a couple of former Purple Aces as assistant coaches. People were excited. There was some, enthusiasm around the program. Now they've hit hard times. How are the fans responding? How are the crowds? And then also let us know where we should go to eat once we hit Evansville.
No, I think the fan response has been pretty level-headed. Because this is a season that, like I said earlier, people just, weren't expecting much given what happened last season and the timing of the coaching change. So I think, it's been pretty level-headed. Crowds have remained about the same. Some crowds are obviously bigger than others. But crowds have remained about the same, still getting about 2,000-3,000 a night, around about that. But yeah, no, it's, when you have a guy like David, who's, Evansville born and raised, and then you got, Marcus Wilson and Craig Snow coming into the staff. Those are guys who were instrumental in getting Evansville to the NCAA tournament in '99, the last time they were there. So, that was going to be, that was obviously going to get the excitement going. And those guys, like I said earlier, I know those guys can coach. Just from, having been there and having seen it. So, there's reason to be excited with those guys. Beyond just the nostalgia purposes, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, crowd response and fan response for the most part, I think, has been pretty level-headed. Every once in a while I'll get people on Twitter saying, this, that, and the other. But for the most part, from what I've seen, it's been pretty level-headed.
What you mean? Somebody's been negative on Twitter? How is that possible?
I don't know. Twitter is usually just a bastion of positivity and
That's
happiness.
right. Totally. So where should I go to eat when I'm in Evansville next time?
Oh man. So there's a couple places. I am probably on the cusp of caffeine addiction, so I've always got to get coffee. The local places I go, there's River City, which is downtown on Main Street. Haven't been there in a while, just because I don't really have time to just kind of go and walk around, and typically have to go to like a drive-through place, but that place is good. You got Donut Bank, the famous, and then there's Honeymoon as well. And then if you're getting like a lunch or a dinner, Taroni's, the pizza place, it's pretty good. The buffalo chicken pizza, unreal. And then there's Brew Burger, which is it used to be like a Greyhound bus station. And now it's a pretty good burger spot, I must say. As for like local breweries, there's it's Myriad. Jeez, it's still early. Which I like to go there. Good selection. Every time I go somewhere new, I try to go to a local brewery. So whenever I got the job and was here for a weekend touring apartments and everything, that was one of the first places I went. And it's good stuff. And then for like post game stuff, I like Kipley's. It's a bar. It's right across the street from where Robert Stadium used to be, the old where Evansville played before Ford Center. Good food selection. The beverage selection is pretty typical, but and then there's I've only been here once, but Doc Sports Bar. I don't think it's far from downtown. I've only been there once, and that was over the summer, so it's been a minute. But I know that's a pretty popular spot among the people. So
well, listen, we need those reviews for when we're out traveling in the Valley City. So we appreciate it. Mike, we need to wrap up, but we have 4 teams tied for first place and 4 teams 1 game back. I don't think that Arch Madness, Mike Kern, could be any more poised for excitement, competitiveness. 4 teams are going to get a bye, but the bottom 8 teams, their seating just doesn't matter if you're not in the top four. It's going to be a wild weekend in St. Louis.
You know, we've never had a team win the tournament coming from the opening day. We've never had a team win after playing on Thursday, and this might be the year because we're going to have 4 teams. Obviously, they're a game out of first, and 4 that are tied for first. 4 of those teams are going to be playing on Thursday. They're all very capable of putting 4 together. You know, our tournament, of course, is 4 weeks from yesterday. Tickets are always on sale. We got great tournament discounts on our website that you can reach on archmadness.com and Ticketmaster where you buy tickets. I will say that Anthony and Michael killed the foodie segment better than any other that we've had so far. And Michael, I will be in Des Moines for 8 days surrounding the NCAA tournament in mid-March, and I will take you up on some. I'll re-listen to this podcast and take some notes because I'll have some places I need to go. But you guys have been great storytellers for your programs, and Michael, I know you've had a chance to experience some postseason play with Drake and Shirley again this year. Anthony, you left Mizzou a year early, be able to experience there, but I think Evansville will build this program, and I hope you get to experience postseason play very soon with the Aces as well, or USI, if not the Aces. But guys, great job today. Thank you for joining us. Harry, thanks as always being our host, and we'll have another podcast segment next week, and we'll look forward to seeing both of you in Arch Madness.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you guys. Great seeing y'all.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.